I still remember the day I left for boot camp like it was yesterday. The air was thick with late summer heat, and my uniform still felt foreign on my body. My wife, Emily, stood at my side, her fingers laced through mine, squeezing them tightly. "I'll be right here when you get back," she whispered, eyes glistening with unshed tears. We had been married for just over a year, still in that honeymoon phase where every touch lingered, and every goodbye felt too soon. Joining the army had been my dream since I was a kid, but when the orders finally came, the reality of leaving her behind struck me harder than I expected. I promised to write, to call whenever I could, and to come home to her as soon as my duty allowed. For the first few months, everything felt solid. Letters came regularly, handwritten and filled with love. She told me about work, about our dog, Charlie, and about how much she missed me. I held on to those letters like they were lifelines, reading them over and over during long nights on base. When I finally got my first leave, I counted down the days, excited to hold her again. But something felt off the moment I walked through the front door. The house was the same, but different. Emily's smile was warm, but her embrace lacked the desperate longing I had expected. The way she spoke was measured, almost rehearsed. I chalked it up to time apart. Maybe we both needed to adjust. I didn't want to believe that something was wrong. I should have trusted my gut. The first night back felt strange. I had imagined something different, something warmer. Instead of spending hours tangled in each other's arms, catching up on lost time, Emily seemed distant. She kissed me, sure, but it felt obligatory. Like she was playing the role of the loving wife rather than actually being one. I tried to ignore it. Maybe she was just overwhelmed. Maybe my time away had changed things, and we needed to find our rhythm again. But as the days passed, the feeling of unease only grew. Emily was always on her phone, tilting the screen away whenever I walked by. At night, when she thought I was asleep, I caught her texting someone. When I asked, she brushed it off, saying it was just a coworker, that she had picked up extra shifts to keep busy while I was gone. I wanted to believe her. Then there were the little things, perfume on her skin that I didn't recognize, the way she hesitated when I asked about her days, how she suddenly had new clothes I had never seen before. The worst part? She barely touched me. I had spent months missing her, longing for her, and yet when I reached for her, she pulled away. One evening, we sat on the couch watching TV, but her mind was somewhere else. "You okay?" I asked, studying her face. She blinked, as if snapping back to reality. "Yeah, of course. Just tired." I nodded, pretending to believe her. But my gut was telling me something was wrong. And this time, I couldn't ignore it. I tried to shake the paranoia, but it clung to me like a shadow. Every little thing Emily did felt suspicious now, and I hated feeling that way about my own wife. Maybe it was all in my head. Maybe I had just been away too long, and I wasn't used to civilian life again. But deep down, I knew better. The lies started small. One night, she told me she had to stay late at work. I wanted to surprise her, so I drove to the diner where she waitressed. Her car wasn't in the parking lot. I sat there for nearly an hour, watching. She never showed up. I didn't confront her right away. I wanted proof, something undeniable. So I started paying closer attention. She was taking more showers than usual, sometimes as soon as she got home. She had a new habit of leaving her phone face down and on silent. Calls went unanswered, or she'd step outside to take them. And then there was the way she looked at me, like I was a stranger, like she was with me out of obligation rather than love. One Saturday, I told her I was going to visit my parents for the afternoon. I left, but I didn't go far. Instead, I parked a few streets away and waited. Less than 30 minutes later, a black car pulled into our driveway. A man stepped out. Tall. Confident. Too comfortable as he walked up to my front door. Emily greeted him like she had been waiting for him all day. I watched as she kissed him, deeply, without hesitation. The kind of kiss she hadn't given me since I came home. My stomach twisted. My hands clenched the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. There it was. Proof. I had been gone, serving my country, believing she was waiting for me. But the truth was, she had already replaced me. I sat in my truck, gripping the wheel so tightly my fingers ached. My heart pounded in my chest, not from sadness but from rage. Seeing her with him, kissing him in our home, felt like a knife to the gut. I forced myself to breathe. Storming inside in a blind fury wouldn't help me. I needed to think. I needed to be smart. After a few minutes I drove off, but not home. Not yet. I needed space, time to process what I had just seen. I ended up at an old friend's house, Ryan, a guy I had served with before he got out of the army. He took one look at me and knew something was wrong. "She's cheating," I said flatly as I sat on his porch. Ryan exhaled sharply. "Damn, man. You sure?" I nodded. "Saw it with my own eyes." We sat in silence for a while before he finally asked, "What are you gonna do?" That was the question, wasn't it? A part of me wanted to go back and throw that guy out of my house. But another part of me knew that wouldn't solve anything. "She's gonna try to lie about it," I muttered. "Act like I'm crazy." Ryan leaned forward. "Then don't give her the chance. Get proof. Cover your ass." He was right. I needed more than just my word if this turned ugly. If she had already betrayed me like this, who knew what else she was capable of? That night, I slept at Ryan's place, pretending like I wasn't watching my phone, waiting for Emily to call or text. She didn't. Not even once. By the time morning came, my mind was made up. I wasn't just going to catch her in the act. I was going to make damn sure she couldn't deny it. The next morning, I drove home like nothing had happened. Emily was in the kitchen, sipping coffee like it was just another day. When she saw me walk in, she gave me a small smile, forced, like she was trying to play the role of the faithful wife. "Hey, you're back early," she said, setting her mug down. "Yeah," I replied, keeping my tone even. "Figured I'd just come home instead of staying the night." She nodded, but there was something in her eyes, nervousness. Like she was worried I knew something. I acted normal, even affectionate. I kissed her forehead, asked about her day, pretended everything was fine. Inside, though, I was planning. That night, when she fell asleep, I did what I never thought I'd have to do. I checked her phone. Locked. Of course. But I had been with her long enough to know her passcode. My hands were steady as I entered it. And there it was. Text after text with a number I didn't recognize. Messages that made my stomach turn. "I can't wait to see you again. Last night was amazing. I've never felt this way before. He's so clueless, it's almost sad." I clenched my jaw, my blood boiling. She had no shame. No remorse. Just deception and betrayal. I took screenshots of everything and sent them to my own phone. Then I went a step further. I installed a small camera in the living room, a motion-activated one I had bought years ago but never used. If she was bold enough to bring him into our home again, I would have undeniable proof. For the next few days, I played the part of the loving husband. I kissed her goodbye when she left for work. I texted her sweet messages, and I waited. And sure enough, just 2 days later, my camera caught exactly what I expected. Her. And him. In our home. On our couch. Laughing. Kissing. Like I didn't even exist. I had all the proof I needed. Now, it was time to decide what to do with it. I sat in my truck that night, watching the footage over and over. Every time I replayed it, the anger in my chest burned hotter. This wasn't just betrayal, it was humiliation. She had paraded him around in my home like I was nothing, like the vows we made meant nothing. I had two choices: confront her in a fit of rage, or be smarter than her. I chose the latter. The next morning, I acted like everything was normal. I kissed her on the cheek, made small talk, even told her I'd be working late. She smiled and said she might go out with some friends. Lying to my face, just like I knew she would. That night I waited. I parked down the street and watched as the same black car pulled into my driveway. The same man stepped out, walked right up to my door, and let himself inside. I gave them about 20 minutes before I made my move. I walked up to the door, unlocked it slowly, and stepped inside. The living room was dark, but I could hear them in the bedroom. My bedroom. I flipped the hallway light on, and the sound of their laughter cut off instantly. "Emily!" I called, my voice calm, steady. A moment of silence. Then hurried shuffling. The bedroom door flew open, and there she was, wrapped in a sheet, eyes wide with panic. The guy stood behind her, half-dressed, frozen like a deer in headlights. "Oh my God!" she gasped, clutching the sheet tighter. "It's not what it looks like." I let out a cold laugh. "Not what it looks like? That's funny, because I recorded exactly what it looks like." I pulled out my phone and played the video, her and him, clear as day. Her face strained of color. The guy muttered, "Shit," under his breath and started grabbing his clothes. "I think you should leave," I told him, my tone dangerously low. "Before I make you." He didn't argue. He shoved his shoes on and bolted past me, out the door like a coward. Emily stood there, her lip trembling. Save it," I cut her off. "I'm not interested in excuses." She reached for me. "Please, let's talk." I stepped back. "We're done, Emily." I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there in nothing but shame. But I wasn't finished yet. She had taken my trust and destroyed it. Now, it was time for her to pay. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at Ryan's place, staring at the divorce papers I had printed earlier that day. I had already made up my mind. I wasn't going to let Emily drag this out or twist the story. I was going to make sure she didn't get a dime more than she deserved. The next morning, I went back to the house. Emily was still there, curled up on the couch, looking like she hadn't slept either. When she saw me walk in, her eyes filled with tears. "Please," she whispered. "Can we just talk?" I set the papers on the table in front of her. "Here's all we need to talk about." She looked down at them, then back up at me. "You're serious? As serious as you were when you brought him into my house," I said coldly. Her face twisted with guilt, but she still tried to reach for me. "I made a mistake. It didn't mean anything." I cut her off. "Stop lying, Emily. I have the texts. I have the video. Hell, you even called me clueless while you were screwing him." She flinched. "I was lonely," she tried. "You were gone for so long, and I didn't know how to handle it." I shook my head, disgusted. "That's not an excuse. You could have talked to me. Instead, you threw away our marriage like it was nothing." She wiped at her tears, flipping through the divorce papers with shaky hands. When she got to the section about assets, her face fell. "Wait. You're keeping the house?" I crossed my arms. "Of course I am. I paid for it. And I'm not about to give you a free place to live after what you did." Her expression darkened. "That's not fair. I was your wife." I let out a bitter laugh. "No, you weren't. Not really." She opened her mouth to argue, but I wasn't interested in hearing any more of her lies. I grabbed my bag and headed for the door. "Sign the papers," I said over my shoulder. "Or I'll see you in court." And with that I walked out, leaving her with nothing but the consequences of her own choices. I thought she'd sign the papers quietly and disappear from my life. I hoped she would. But deep down, I knew Emily well enough to expect a fight. Sure enough, a few days later, I got a text from her. "I'm not signing. We need to talk." I ignored it. There was nothing left to say. Then came the phone calls, first pleading, then angry. When I still didn't respond, she left a voicemail full of threats. "You think you're gonna throw me away like trash? You can't just decide I get nothing. I gave up everything for you." The nerve of it made me laugh. She gave up everything? I was the one who had been thousands of miles away, risking my life while she was playing house with another man. And then, just as I expected, she made her move. A lawyer's letter arrived at Ryan's house. She was contesting the divorce. She wanted half of everything. The house. The savings. Even my military benefits. Ryan whistled when he read it over. She's got some balls, I'll give her that. She's got nothing, I said, my jaw tight. She's not getting a damn thing. I had come prepared. Before I even confronted her, I had spoken to a divorce attorney, who told me exactly what to do. I had all the proof I needed, texts, video evidence, even the timestamps of when she let that guy into my home. Adultery wasn't always a game-changer in divorce cases, but in my state, it was enough to protect my assets. She wasn't going to take a penny from me. So I lawyered up. And I fought back. The next few weeks were a legal nightmare. Emily played dirty. She cried in court, tried to paint me as the neglectful husband, even hinted that I had been emotionally abusive by leaving her alone so often. But facts don't lie. My lawyer ripped her claims apart, piece by piece. The judge reviewed the evidence, my clear evidence, and saw right through her act. By the time the dust settled, Emily had lost. She walked away with nothing. No house. No money. No sympathy. Just regret. The last time I saw her, she wouldn't even look me in the eye. And honestly, I was fine with that. She wasn't worth another second of my time. The day the divorce was finalized, I felt something I hadn't felt in months: peace. No more arguments, no more lies, no more pretending. Emily was officially out of my life. I stood outside the courthouse, watching her storm off with a scowl, her heels clicking angrily against the pavement. She didn't get what she wanted. She thought she could cheat on me, lie to me, and then walk away with half of everything I had worked for. Not a chance. Ryan clapped me on the shoulder. It's over, man. Time to start fresh. Fresh. The word felt strange, like I was stepping into a life I hadn't planned for. I had pictured a future with Emily, growing old together, maybe even having kids someday. But now, that version of my life was dead, and I had to figure out what came next. The first thing I did was get rid of every trace of her. I packed up her leftover junk, tossed the sheets she had shared with another man, and even repainted the bedroom. Then, I focused on me. I threw myself into training, pushing my body harder than ever. I reconnected with friends I had drifted from while trying to keep my marriage afloat. And for the first time in a long time, I actually felt good. One evening, I sat on my back porch, beer in hand, watching the sunset. The same backyard where I had once dreamed about a future with Emily now felt like mine again. No ghosts of the past, no bitter memories. Just quiet. Just peace. And then, as if the universe wanted to remind me how far I'd come, I got a text. Not from Emily. From someone new. Someone unexpected. Hey, it's been a while. Want to grab a drink? I smirked, taking another sip of my beer. Yeah. It had been a while. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to move on. I stared at the text for a moment, letting it sink in. It was from Olivia, a girl I had known back in high school. We had lost touch over the years, but she had always been kind, always had a way of making people feel at ease. For the first time in a long time, I felt something other than anger or betrayal. Curiosity. I typed back a simple reply. Yeah, let's do it. That night, I met Olivia at a small bar downtown. No expectations, no pressure, just two old friends catching up. But as the evening went on, I found myself laughing, actually enjoying someone's company without the weight of the past dragging me down. She didn't ask about Emily, and I didn't bring her up. That chapter was closed. Instead, we talked about everything else: life, goals, the stupid things we did as teenagers. It was easy. By the time we walked out, I realized something. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living. Over the next few months, things changed. I moved forward, step by step. I wasn't rushing into anything, but I wasn't stuck in the past either. Olivia and I saw each other more, but I made sure I was building my own life first. Emily? She was nothing more than a bad memory now. I heard from a mutual friend that the guy she cheated with left her not long after the divorce was finalized. Karma has a funny way of working things out. One day, as I sat in my backyard, I realized just how far I had come. I had walked through hell, but I had made it out the other side. And for the first time in a long time, I was free.